What makes a font scary? When I think about scary fonts, I think about horror films or slasher films or, those classic spooky films that you'd see on TV shows as a kid. You think textures, you think splatters, you think creepy, eerie, something that gives that vibe. So for today, I just wanted to spend a moment figuring out what makes a font scary. Is it something that is universal? Do we all think it's scary? Does a scary font traverse across different cultures, or do different cultures perceive scary in different ways? And so in this article, they give some examples of what makes a font scary. So I wanted to go through that with you to see if I agree. Can a non-scary font, like say Comic Sans, be scary? I mean, I know it's a scary font choice, but is it objectively creepy? Does it give you the shivers down your spine? I'm not sure. So the first on the list is from Psycho, old school, and it's that kind of a classic scary American film. So what we're using here is like a bold sans serif typeface, and that would not otherwise be that scary. But what I see here is the use of texture, a slash through this horizontal center of the word, and then a rip through what looks to be the C to give a feeling of something bad, something is wrong. Also, it's set on a black background and the white font has a bit of a glow to it. So there's a bit of an eerie feel to it. Now, because it's from the 60s, this was maybe more novel and more new. And so it was probably like, wow, that is a scary treatment to what otherwise would be a normal font. So with Halloween, what we're getting with this title sequence is music. It's set on a black background. There's like kind of a creepy jack-o'-lantern glowing. And ultimately what it comes down to is the ITC Serif Gothic typeface. And it's glowing in orange. And this is where we see classic Halloween aesthetic. And this is kind of when you think of like Halloween, you think of the Gothic typeface. We see harsh serifs on the lettering. It's heavy. And really what's making this more creepy is one, our perception. We now in 2022 and beyond, it's almost stereotypically Halloween, at least in our culture. In 1978, maybe this was new. And so in order to make this creepy, they needed to have the creepy music and the black background and like the glowing jack-o'-lantern and the orange with the pulsing, glowing feel around the letters. We're trying to establish a scary feeling. And so I imagine that's what they had to do. And because of that, we can just throw the font up on the screen now and go, ooh, that's so scary. A Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah, so that alone is just a creepy film. I saw that as a kid and wish I didn't. So what they're saying here is that it's hard to imagine the Trajan, I don't know how to pronounce this font. I can't imagine this as a scary font because it's generally pretty sophisticated. But since the 90s, it's, as they say, one of the most overused fonts in horror movies and cinema in general, which I find very interesting. And this Vox article says how one typeface took over movie posters. Very cool. So there's a whole video on this font. When we start to associate a visual like this typeface with something creepy, like a scary film or a season or an experience, then they're going to start to use that more. And then it becomes overused. Then it becomes almost a bit of like a meme that's a scary font. Now, what I also see is texture. There's almost this overlaying of texture on the lettering. There's like a grungy texture overlaid to give it a bit of a distressed look. And that's another way I find you can make a font scary. Overlaying texture, or putting a slash through the center of it, or ripping it, or making it look like there's some sort of spill on it. Next is Stranger Things from 2016. So this kind of like is a huge thing on Netflix. It reminds me of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Young kids sitting around, telling ghost stories. Now, I don't think that that's what Stranger Things is about, but that's the feeling I get. It's supposed to be more retro. What I'm seeing with this intro sequence is the music. They're playing creepy music, of course, And so that establishes a tone. Like if they played something happy and clappy and with a ukulele and stuff, it would be more comical. Or maybe it could potentially be really creepy. You get the black background, and look, they're going with the glowing lettering. It's an outline. This font, so there's almost like the serifs look like the edges of a blade or something. So that it does have a intense look to it, and they have the outline that's glowing red, almost neon-like, with the black background and the creepy 80s synth background music. And then the way that they bring in each of the letters, puzzle pieces, it's meant to give a feeling of mystery. And so, is it the font that makes it scary in this case? Not really. So they're using different textures and experience here for you to feel like this is creepy. Now, so what does that say? Does it mean that a font in and of itself can't be scary? I'm sure it could, but you can use the context as well. So if you're designing something, a poster, a movie, a title sequence, a website, a game, an app, whatever user experience you are trying to design, and you want it to give a feeling, in this case, let's say spooky, then take in context. Use color, texture to tell the story. And that's what's happening here. They're not relying just on the font. So we got Suspiria, which I've never heard of, but I find this movie poster very interesting. Obviously, they got this blood paint splatter, whatever is going on here. They're meant to make it more grungy, and then they're showing people's eyes. So there's like this suspicious, people are suspicious of one another. This guy up here with the glasses looks like he is the culprit. Like we've got some suspicious activity here. And then we got this whimsical, fun, retro style 60s type face, I'm guessing, with the color, and it's fun, and it's almost clown-like. And then people think clowns are creepy too, so maybe that is part of it. Different weights and colors to infuse emotion and chaos and jumble of letters in the 2018 version. It's inspired by the harmonious geometric shapes of the Bauhaus style, but it's making it more chaotic. And so here we see chaos and we see whimsy, but it's not stable, and that is scary. So what I've learned from this is the whole context needs to come into play here. It's how you set the scene, it's the font, but it's the background, it's the color usage, it's the texture. Is there an element that is making something scary? Blood, or something like a cut mark or a rip or something chaotic. It's taking what would otherwise be just a standard typeface or font and putting it into a scene that tells a story that makes you feel scared or nervous or a bit suspicious, spooky. Ooh, that's what we're trying to do here. Does this apply across cultures? If you're watching and you're from a different culture, does this sort of stuff make you feel like it's scary? Or is it in context to say Hollywood? What's scary to you? What would a scary font look like to you? How would you design a movie poster or a website or some sort of scene to tell a story of what is scary? Sometimes going over the top and using these really over the top, scary, conventions like blood splatters and black and white and wobbly fonts and serifs and grungy look, like all of these really obvious things with the music in the background. That's scary. But what if you could take something so simple and make it scary without relying on those things? And maybe we have the ability to do that now because we've established what scary conventions are. We could pull that back a little bit. Just like when you see logos of long-lasting brands minimizing their logos and taking the textures out and taking the roundness and minimizing it because we already got it. We don't need the ornate textures and the details. We can just pare it back. We get the point. So maybe that's the case here. Maybe we don't need to rely on the ooh to make it scary. Maybe we don't need to have the creepy effects, but maybe we do. What if we took like a classically non-scary font like Comic Sans, which most designers would see as juvenile, amateur, and just like kind of a bad font? And what if we tried to make it scary using these common conventions? Could we do that? What if we like overlaid it on a black background and we messed with its shape a little bit, made it a little more chaotic? What if we put texture onto it and a creepy background with a sequence that brought the letters in a creepy way? Would that work? You be the judge, and I'll catch you in the next one. Whoa. So dumb. That is not good for my eyes. Okay.